The views and opinions expressed in this podcast by the host and or the guest do not necessarily reflect the views of the host and or Paranormal Buzz Radio and or its sponsors. Use of any material produced by Paranormal Buzz Radio without express written consent is prohibited. Paranormal Buzz Radio will not be held responsible for you holding your knees, crying, and rocking in a corner in a puddle of your own urine, or being beheaded by a group of children in a cornfield. In fact, if you come across a group of children in a cornfield, we promise to make fun of you as you run away screaming in terror. Listener discretion is advised.
Paranormal 5 is bringing you Para Peeps New England to help showcase some of the best in the paranormal and unexplained in the area. Their goal? To show the strength of paranormal unity by giving everyone in the field a voice. Join them as they discuss everything from haunted locations, aliens, metaphysical, cryptids, and much, much more. So sit back, enjoy the show, and as always, thank you for listening.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to episode number 3 of Para Peeps New England. My name is Rich.
And I'm Missy.
And we are of Paranormal 5, a Maine-based paranormal family. Just want to say, first off, again, thank you guys for coming back and tuning in. We appreciate you guys checking out episode number 1 and 2. I know we had a blast last week talking to Toby and Tony over at Afterlife Paranormal.
It wasn't last week.
Well, I'm sorry, timing's off, so a month ago. Well, the last episode aired, but last month, not last week, excuse me. So, but anyway, so thank you guys for, again, hanging out with us and tuning in. And tonight we are super excited because tonight we've got a topic that I know is kind of where we got our kind of start in investigating and checking out the paranormal. So tonight we want to talk about some graveyards. We want to talk about cemeteries. We want to talk about some graveyard etiquette. So we thought, what better way than bringing on our good friend Thomas Spitalere of Essex County Ghost Project. Tom, how you doing tonight?
I'm well. How you guys doing in the Great White North?
We are doing great, Tom. And first off, we just want to thank you so much. We're so honored to have you here tonight with us. I call Tom like my paranormal big brother. I love Tom.
Thank you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, no, Tom is... We've been doing some work here with Tom for a little while now, doing some live events, and we've gotten together on some investigations, and and Tom's opened his whole paranormal kind of world up to us and invited us right in. So, Tom, we appreciate everything you've done and included us on. So
we appreciate what you've helped me out with the stuff we've been working on. So
definitely, it's a good two-way street.
Yeah, definitely. So, Tom, just to kind of start this off, we thought that maybe you could kind of give like a quick history about yourself. And what the paranormal is to you.
All right. Well, I've been in the paranormal world ever since I could remember. But before that, I was with 13 years with Essex County Ghost Project, and over 20 plus years doing what I do best, help people out. And what got me started was seeing things, feeling things, and knowing that there's something bigger out there.
Definitely.
Bigger than us. And it doesn't matter if it's a cryptid, a spirit, or a UFO. It's bigger than us. And I always wanted to know what was out there. And I started my journey to go find what was out there. And along the way, I decided to start up a team. I didn't know where it was going to take me. A lot of teams come and go, and the years I've been doing this, I've seen plenty of my friends start teams and plenty of them go, we've had enough. So I continued to find out what was out there. Early on, I started a show at Hilldale Community Television, and that's been going on about 11 years now. And last year, I got involved at LCAT TV and started another show at LCAT.
Well, you're busy
called
man.
The Paranormal News Hour.
Busy man.
Busy. Plus, going out there, not only do we do cases, not only do we do this, but we also, and we'll get back to the cemetery in a minute, we also run fundraisers.
Mm-hmm.
Raised over $30,000 for nonprofits since I started this venture.
Wow. That's awesome. That is awesome.
And not taking a dime. The only thing I ask when I do fundraisers for nonprofits is tell me how much we made that night so I can just add to the list so when the next nonprofit comes up, we know what we did. So I can tell them. So that is huge.
Yes.
Then along the way, right around the same time I'm thinking of starting the Essex County Ghost Project, I'm chairing the Haverhill Historical Commission, which is a government board. The Essex National Heritage Commission, which is a regional commission in Essex County, asked the commissioners to came up with this plan. Essex County Greenbelt and the Essex County Institute and a few other ones came up with this plan to outline the heritage areas a little bit better, including demolition delay stuff, which is boring for paranormal, scenic roads ordinances, and taking control of the cemeteries. There's this not real old cemetery, 1859, to wherever you're listening from. If you're in England, that's a brand new cemetery. If you're in California, it's a brand new cemetery. But, in New England, it's medium. Right. I started trying to get control of the situation, overgrowth, this, that, and the other thing that was happening down there became Party Central. 20.93 acres of land.
Wow.
So with a small group of volunteers, we started cleaning. And clean, but we needed money because there was no money left behind. So I took the paranormal and started running ghost hunts down there.
Very well.
Yes.
Well, I would say very good ghost hunts down there. We've gotten to enjoy a couple of those ourselves.
Correct, and we still run the ghost hunts. We ran them last year, even with COVID. We didn't run them all summer long because of COVID, but throughout the fall we ran them. Following the COVID guidelines and everything else, we were able to run the fundraisers. This year I'm already looking at half dozen fundraisers at Hilldale, for Hilldale, and another location that I'm not ready to discuss yet that we'll be doing fundraising with.
Ooh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
I know that's one thing, Tom. I've always, anytime someone just, asks to describe Tom or what it's like, it commonly comes up that, Tom is definitely the guy that's going to give you the shirt off his back. So, not surprised you got your hands in so many different fundraisers and ways of giving back to the community.
We do the best we can.
Well, you do an awesome job. So, my next question about this with Hilldale Cemetery is, how did you so you already kind of talked about how you kind of overtook all of this and everything like that. So what are some other duties that you're kind of in charge of, responsibilities do you have that go along with it?
So what happened was, as chairman of the commission, I spent 2 months in the public eye fighting to find out who was running Hilldale Cemetery and everything else. So right after Christmas, I got a late Christmas present. I get a call from a local lawyer going, the old board resigned, do you want the cemetery? Why not? Add that to my list of duties. And I proudly took over the cemetery and started cutting the lawn and trying to keep it clean.
Yep.
That became a lot of work. We added more volunteers. I have a volunteer coordinator, Tammy Dobrowski, who now runs the cleanup end of it. And what my job is, besides being the board president, taking all the hits, my other job is to raise money. And that's what I do good. We raise a lot. We try to raise as much money as we can every year for Hilldale.
And, for those of you who don't know, too, you talk about the volunteer crews. I know you've shown us around down there a couple of times, and this is a massive cemetery, and
correct.
The amount of uncovering you guys have done so far, and even still the amount left to be done. This is a big project just to kind of take on with just yourself and just a handful of like-minded people that want to share their time to help out.
Yeah, it's 20.93 acres of land.
Wow.
And as you guys know, it's not almost 21 acres, a little over that, of flat land.
Yes.
It's a terminal moraine.
Right.
It was cut out during the Laurentine Ice Glacier, better known to some people as the Wisconsin Ice Glacier. They carved out the Merrimack River Valley, so if you're listening locally. The Merrimack River started, for the people who listening across the world, in Franklin, New Hampshire, at the mouth and went down the Boston Harbor. When the ice glacier received, it carved out the Merrimack River Valley, which we know of today. And it's not an easy cemetery to clean.
No, like you said, like it's very hilly. There's a lot of different terrain, and it
just goes on. I mean, when you get to the end,
and there's poison ivy.
Yeah, gotta find the poison ivy. Yeah,
poison ivy.
That's one thing Missy's very good at finding is the poison ivy.
I could have easily fixed that whole cemetery if I could have sold the poison ivy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we need to get you some goats.
The poison ivy down there is tremendous. We go through gallons and gallons. My volunteers that are out there, Tammy, who's out there every weekend, Karen, who's out there every weekend.
Yeah.
They go through gallons of poison ivy, and it's real easy to find down there.
Yeah, just send Missy down. She'll find it all for you. Yeah. So, Tom, before we get into kind of some of the, your, thoughts and beliefs on checking out some of these cemeteries, just to kind of continue on as far as like the fundraisers. So, what are some of the fundraisers and ways that you've been able to fund this project down there, and what are some of the things you take on for raising money for Hilldale?
All right. So let's start with we've had spaghetti dinners down there.
Mm-hmm.
Not down there, at locations. Yeah, that didn't sound good.
I would eat spaghetti there.
I'm going to get back to that issue in a minute because Hilldale is a very special cemetery, so we'll get back to that.
Sure.
We had spaghetti dinners. We've had pumpkin on parade, which we had people carve pumpkins. They donate some money to display their pumpkins. We had kids' games and everything.
Awesome.
That we obviously couldn't do last year because of...
Oh, COVID, hooray.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because of COVID. We just couldn't do it. Sad, but true.
Yeah.
We've had historical walks through that cemetery. Some of the historical people that are buried there, including for everybody listening across this great big lake called the Atlantic Ocean and H.P. Lovecraft's printer, Charles W. Tryout Smith, is buried at Hilldale Cemetery.
That's awesome.
So we have that connection to Lovecraft, which is pretty cool because it's only about an hour ride from me is where the H.P. Lovecraft series was actually filmed.
That's cool. That is interesting. It's a fun little fact about Hilldale.
So, and then we're working on new fundraisers this year, which I'm not ready to give out yet because we haven't had our board meeting, so we don't know what's gonna...
Don't want to drop too many Easter eggs too early?
Well, we got to vote on them as a board, too. So sure. Everybody's going to come with new ideas. We're going to keep the old ideas, some of the old ideas, add some new ideas. But if we don't think we're going to be able to do it because we're such a small board, I just don't want to drop that out there and someone go, oh, I love that one, let's do it.
Yeah. No, totally.
So we're going to hold off on what the announces. And then, of course, I run paranormal ghost hunts down there pretty much year-round except for last year.
Yeah.
And then we also have a Parafest that we run to help raise that money, except for last year. And as of this podcast, it's still up in the air a little bit. Not by much, but a little bit, so I'm not going to release anything on that yet.
I know. We have our fingers, toes, and everything crossed.
Absolutely. Hopefully people are listening to this right after it takes place.
I know, because this is supposed to air the Monday that New England Parafest is supposed to happen, so let's hope.
Let's manifest it right now. Let's put the energy in and let's get it happening.
So, I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a love affair. And that's what I've done to raise money. We've also raised money for other historical societies and other buildings by doing ghost hunts on their property. Or if they don't want to be attached to ghosts at their own property, I will rent out Hilldale Cemetery. And most of the time I just give it to another nonprofit. I just give it to them. I don't even rent it out.
Yeah.
If they want to make a donation back to Hilldale at the end of the night, I leave it up to them.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So, Tom, another question is, so obviously I know that probably Hilldale is probably your favorite cemetery here in New England, but what are a few of your favorite cemetery graveyards here in New England?
The problem is I don't have one.
Oh.
Every graveyard is my favorite. You don't want to be behind me up in the North Country or somewhere in New England that I don't know where I'm going. I'm just out for a daytime cruise. Because sometimes when I see that cemetery, I forget to put the directional on.
Yeah, the rules don't apply at that point. Let's get in there and check it out.
Luckily, I've never been pulled over, but I've had a few horns beep at me, but that's nothing new.
Maybe a few choice words here and there.
Probably, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. You never know.
And so, I mean, obviously each cemetery is unique of itself, but what are some characteristics of these certain cemeteries that really draw you in as far as from just a physical appearance? What are you looking for? I mean, obviously it's not like when you're, going and looking at homes or looking at cars, but when you're going through these different cemeteries, what are some of the things that really stand out to you?
Well, the oldest cemeteries really stand out to me. Everything up until about the early 1900s. Mm-hmm. And the reason for that is in the 16 and the 1700s here in the States. Obviously in England it was a little different, but the stones were hand carved. They had a lot of different decorations on them, and they told a story. You could actually go into an old graveyard in New England, read the stones, and almost know the history of the town you're in. Some places, like the state of Maine, actually call their cemeteries open-air museums.
Huh.
I love that.
Because there's a story in every stone.
Wow.
So you'll learn about the people. You'll learn the hand carvings, what was going on. You can look at a bunch of stones in an old graveyard and watch a whole family get wiped out in about 14 days, and then you walk and see another family and go, oh, there must have been a pandemic.
Sure.
Well, they didn't call them pandemics back then like we do today, but you know something big hit, whether it was the influenza, whether it was there were a lot of outbreaks, stuff we take for granted today, like the flu.
Yes.
Obviously, people do die from the flu today, but the flu, the Spanish flu 101 years ago, was actually worse than the COVID we're dealing with right now.
Right. No, and
so there's that to look at.
No, that's a good point. Like you were saying, when you go through these cemeteries, it is wild to see, because it's like you can almost see during what years these big events took place, and like you said, you can see whole family timelines of the parents to the children to the grandchildren, and how sometimes those, unfortunately, the death dates all kind of line up and match up, but it really does. Each one's kind of unique and does give its own story.
Now, if you're going through a graveyard, let's go a little in depth a little bit. And I see this all over the place, okay? You get to a headstone and you see, wow, this guy was buried 5 times, 6 times, or more. There's a reason why that poor guy was buried 6 times. And the sad news was it wasn't a divorce.
No.
If you look at the marriage dates, the years, you will know it coincided with a kid. That means his poor wife died at childbirth.
Oh. Mm-hmm. I did not know that.
And he remarried.
Yeah.
And then he might have had a few more kids, and then she died at childbirth. Very sad in New England times.
Yes, no, I agree. There's up at Vale End Cemetery, there's the ghost story behind it is the woman in blue.
Oh yes.
And her she was actually buried. She had died. Her husband had her buried. His other wife had died and buried his new wife on top of his old wife. And he wasn't actually even buried in that cemetery. He's buried somewhere else. So.
And then sometimes you had some interesting burials. I've read these in other gravestone yards, but I can't remember where. I've read them all because I go to so many graveyards. But in Haverhill, at the old Bradford burial ground, Bradford used to be its own town before in the 1800s, Mother Bradford died and became part of Haverhill. Now it's a section of Haverhill. Originally, it was a section of Raleigh, Massachusetts. You walk into the old Bradford burial ground, you're going to see this stone right in front of you. Mr. So-and-so, and I won't mention the name of the family because they're still around the Haverhill area, and with the world changing, I don't want to deal with the issues from that.
Yeah. Buried
with his wife and 5 concubines, right on the stone.
Really?
Man.
It's just a little, a little forward,
Yeah, a little bit. Just a little bit.
So, these stones are interesting. And then you have other stones, and you don't know, what's going on. So, the Forgotten War. Let me talk about that real quick. Am I coming in all right?
Yeah, what was it? Say it again.
You're fine.
The Forgotten War.
Go ahead.
Okay, the Forgotten War wasn't the war as we think it is. It's to me, it's the French-Indian War. It's that whole era.
Mm-hmm.
Most people who fought in the French-Indian War, you can't even find their gravestones. Or they're not marked French-Indian War veterans. They're only marked American Revolutionary War veterans. Because it was very common for the native culture to go back and dig up the bodies and mutilate them out of fear of evil spirits roaming the land.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
There was a whole inherent fear about that.
That is brutal.
So, I've been on a mission through these old graveyards to try to locate some of these French-Indian War veterans.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you agree with the war or not, we're not here to debate that. We're here to debate ghosts.
Yep.
They need to be recognized. It'll calm the spirits down in some of these cemeteries.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, your state, I want to call that the second capital of gravestones.
Just about everywhere you look. Everywhere you turn, you'll find some.
They're still unturning them in Rhode Island, which to me is the national capital for gravestones and graveyards. In fact, how important is the main graveyards? We're going to tell you right now. For all you guys that have traveled the main turnpike, they wanted to straighten it out, but they realized they couldn't. So you're cruising up the main turnpike, you're coming into the Kennebec area, and right near the Kennebec truck stop, right before that, the road kind of jets out a little bit. It's no longer straight. Know why? Because if you look up on the hill, they found a family graveyard. Mm-hmm. And 2 of them are Civil War soldiers, because I have never gone up there to look because I don't know how to access it.
Yep.
And you can't pull off the highway. But you see the American flags that someone put, you look at the stone and go, yeah, those are Civil War stones.
Yeah, no, they're more recent, or not more recent, but you can tell that they are Civil War. It's funny. And the flags, it's maintained too.
Yeah.
So somebody's going out there and taking care of it and placing the flags. If the flags fall, they're taking care of it.
And that kind of brings me up to my next question for you, Tom, is so obviously, we've determined, the love for checking out these graveyards and these cemeteries, and I know you host your own investigations over at Hilldale, and so for you personally, what does it mean to investigate a graveyard, and what are some of your personal rules and etiquette and the right and the wrong way to go about investigating graveyards? Because I'm sure this can be kind of a controversial topic for some people. I'm sure there's people that feel like it's just a place of rest and nothing should be disturbed. But like anything, there's respectful ways and there's correct ways to go about checking these places out. So for someone who might be interested in going and checking out some graveyards, what would you tell somebody as far as how to go about that?
Before you even walk into that graveyard, there's stuff you got to do. One is I would research the graveyard, find out when it started. Find out online if anybody has reported anything mysterious. Because trust me, you can find it online, and most of the time it's accurate, not all the time. So that's number one. Number two, make sure if you don't have protection like I do, make sure you wear some type of protection. Number two. Number three, the first thing you do before walking into the graveyard. Now, in the United States, most graveyards are open dawn to dusk.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some exceptions. The town of Wells is 15 minutes before dawn and 15 minutes before dusk. You have to, it is open and close. So check with the local towns beforehand.
Check your local rules.
Yeah.
1. Number 2, when you're going into a small graveyard, during the day or at night, especially if they're in somebody's front lawn. I'm going to talk about this a little bit because nobody owns a graveyard. If there's a graveyard at the side of your house, like in Kittery, Maine, where there's over 232, 235 graveyards, people have the right to access those graveyards. Not at night. You better get permission of the owner, but during the day.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
You have to take, if there's an opening to the gate, the most direct walk to the opening in the stone wall of the gate. You can't be walking by somebody's windows. You're supposed to walk directly. They cannot throw you out of that graveyard during the daytime. At night, they can. So now you want to go ghost hunting in any graveyard, I would check with the local police, the local ordinances, because the town of Salem, if you don't have a permit, I know Salem, Mass is odd like that, but if you don't have a permit, you're in there after hours, you will get arrested.
Oh, okay.
And that's definitely understandable in Salem just because of the
history. Brings all kinds down to check it out.
But I can understand across the board as well, too. Yeah. But I definitely see why they're so strict in
Your best
Salem.
bet is to check the ordinances. Check with the town. Now, if you get permission from the local police department, great. But double check to make sure who owns the graveyard.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because some graveyards are city owned. Some graveyards are owned by a Jewish religion, Jewish church. Some graveyards are owned by the Catholics. Some are owned by the Lebanese. A lot of these graveyards are private, even though the local police say you can go in. Check with the owners.
Okay.
Yep. Some
Now,
of them are
once
even
you get-
historical societies, too.
Yeah, some are owned by historical societies in the smaller towns. That is correct. Now you got permission to go in. If you bring a bottle of water with you, please bring it out with you.
Absolutely.
You bring in recorders and you have to open up a new videotape, please bring the plastic wrappings out with you. Even if you go in during the daytime, because we've gotten great photographs during the daytime of spirits, never mind nighttime. The other thing you got to watch out for at night, and please don't do this alone, even though I've done it, do not walk around graveyards by yourself unless you're familiar with the graveyard. Because 98% of the time, the ghost isn't going to hurt you. But the human factor that might be in there doing things they're not supposed to be doing.
Correct.
Yes.
Will hurt you.
Correct. And again, I'd imagine, too, not to mention just the surface and the if you're in a graveyard or a cemetery that you're not familiar with the actual physical layout of it, probably not the best idea to be strolling around by yourself at night and falling and hurting yourself.
Yeah. Broken
Because,
headstones, footstones here in New England, Can't see them.
And the other problem with old graveyards, we're not talking about the new ones, like 1890s, 1900s and up, unless you're in a small town. The bigger cemeteries are usually all right. Is sinkholes. Because up until the 1900s, I like the face.
I know.
Up until the 1900s, you died, they dig the hole, put the box in the ground. So you have a 1641 cemetery or a 1635 or a 1691. Do you think that box is still underground?
Not that deep.
No.
Oh, I know. Oh.
So it causes its own sinkholes. That's one of the main reasons why today when someone passes on, you have to buy a cement crypt that gets buried. I can't. The casket fits right into it.
Oh.
They're mandatory in most cemeteries.
Yeah, no.
I see why.
When we go to old burial ground in in York, Maine, and there's certain spots I'm just like, oh, kids, don't walk there, don't.
Yeah, well, it's the same too. The other one that we went to over in
Oldfield Cemetery.
Yeah, Oldfield Cemetery. And you're walking by and you get to that kind of that spongy spot on the ground, and it's.
Just watch your step.
Yes, definitely watch your step.
Well, usually the spongy spot is mold or not mold. Sorry. It grows up the side of buildings.
Like moss.
Moss.
Yeah.
Moss is all right. You're not going to go through it.
Yeah.
But when you start seeing sinkholes, you don't want to walk near them, because if it's a sunken grave, I'll be honest with you, you could probably put your foot through that hole if you stepped wrong.
Yeah, especially in spring.
Ruin your whole day, yeah.
Everything's melting.
So Tom, to go along with, so that's obviously a lot of great information as far as how to go about entering into to a cemetery, to go and investigate and make sure you're doing so the right way with the correct permissions. So let's say you've taken all the correct steps, you've gotten all the correct permissions, now you're in the cemetery. How do you feel is the best way to go about dealing with the spirits that you might come in contact with or encounter, or what's the etiquette as far as addressing spirit in a graveyard?
I just got one more quick thing to say.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
When you finally get the permission and you're getting ready for that night investigation, please take a walk through it in daylight time to see what you're up against. Mm-hmm. Not going to memorize the cemetery during the daytime, but at least you'll have, especially if it's the size of Hilldale.
Right. Well, you're going to remember where the drop-off is, and you're going to remember where the places you don't want to go.
Correct. I mean, if you got a lot that's, a quarter of an acre, and it's all flat, you might still want to check out for, sinkholes, but you should be all right. You're not going to get lost. Probably not going to break a leg unless you end up in a sinkhole. So now you got the permission. First thing is first, be respectful to every spirit in there.
Always.
Because one of those spirits, especially if you grew up in New England and you have a New England last name, one of those spirits could be related to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even if you don't have a New England last name and you grew up in an area where your family didn't leave much and you come from, there's 34 great aunts and uncles, you could easily have relatives buried in those cemeteries you never even met. So always respect, that's the most important. So you start walking, try not to, I know you might want to go up this hill at night because it's a nice view with the full moon and try to do an EVP session. It looks pretty cool, great, go do it. Try not to walk on people's stones. Try to avoid them. Obviously, if you're in an overgrown cemetery, you may not.
Sure.
But do your best to watch where you walk and avoid stepping on other people's stones. Just think of it as stepping on your family. You wouldn't want to step on your family.
Yeah.
So why would you step on someone else's family? Respect. Oh. You start asking the questions, you start taking the pictures. All right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, most of these cemeteries have, for the most part, harmless spirits. But you never know what happened in an old graveyard. Spirits might be harmless, but the people there through the years weren't so harmless. They were more harmful. So they open up a portal and they bring in something that's not too friendly. That's why respect is important.
I was going to say, and do you kind of view cemeteries, especially ones that are well known to be investigated, as kind of, sometimes with these haunted locations, you get, what you can refer to as like an energy dump, where you've got a lot of people coming and bringing their own energy with them and it potentially leaving something behind. Do you feel like that's something that takes place in graveyards?
It can. But you always want to be respectful, and you always got to watch where you step, and you got to be nice to the spirits. Mm-hmm. And out of common courtesy, if a historical society or a small organization owns the cemetery, when you're done, give them a call, thank them, and turn over your evidence. You keep your copies, but turn something over to somebody else.
No, that's a good point too. Like, because they may be interested in stuff like that, and maybe that could even open
shed new light on it.
Yeah, exactly, and that might even be able to like open the doors to, like, you know, if people felt comfortable enough to maybe even run like a small investigation, like to raise money for them, kind of like what you do at Hillsdale. Like, if you build that connection and stuff like that, and build that trust with an organization that owns it, you know, it could open up the door for something like that.
Because even though Hilldale Cemetery is a non-profit, okay, so we can apply for grants and everything else under the sun.
Yep.
You got to look at the big picture, okay? I've been involved in non-profits ever since I could crawl, okay? I don't know what every city and town has out there for non-profits, okay?
Mm-hmm.
But the city the size of Haverhill has 56 non-profits.
Wow.
So when there's grant money, community block grant money in cities and towns, which is open for cities, towns, and non-profits, you have a lot of people going for that block grant money, and it's not easy. So I just said, no, we're not going to use the block grant way. We're going to fundraise.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't want to take it from another non-profit, because I got friends on all these boards, too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So out of respect for these boards, I won't take them.
Oh, I get that. Definitely. Something that
So
you really didn't think about.
If you have a cemetery and you're listing and you want to raise money and you're within reasonable, reach out to me. If we can help, we'll do it. If you guys can do it, we'll show you how to do it. The best way to, because cemetery is a little different than running an inside historical building event. There's a lot more work that goes into it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, reach out, you know, we'll do it. I'll do it. It's, you know, it's what I enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody has to work together, because I just can't do it all.
Come on.
I will put it out to my people, but it's very important that the other nonprofit puts it out to their own followers.
Oh, yes, for sure, definitely. They need to put in the work as well, just as much. Yeah. So, Tom, what do you think about when somebody says that you shouldn't invest a cemetery or a graveyard, just for the whole ethics
believe
standpoint?
it or not, people have said that publicly to me. They've actually called what I do down at Hilldale Cemetery a circus.
Mm-hmm.
The circus is coming to town.
Oh.
No, the circus isn't coming to town. Oh, you got a ghost over there?
Our cat. Just normal, Tom, you know.
My normal farm.
So, I look at that and say, a circus? No, it's not a circus. Do you have a better idea to help raise money to clean up the cemetery?
Right.
Yes, no, I agree.
Now, if the cemetery's clean, don't be shocked if it's a private, non-profit cemetery that they may still, even though it looks clean and there's no toppled over stones, they may be hurting for money too.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you haven't had a burial in years.
Right.
That's the other big issue. You know, so don't, you know, I would say as long as the teams are respectful and you're not tipping stones over, then there should be no issue allowing people to investigate a cemetery. Now, with that, I want to get into something. So, during colonial times, you died, they dug a hole, they threw you in.
Mm-hmm.
They said a few words. If you had some money, a carver would come out and hand carve the stone for you.
Yep.
Or you brought it from England. If you were poor, well, you got buried 500 feet behind the shed or the barn.
Yep.
Needless to say, the barn's not there anymore 200 years later. Or my favorite, 150 feet behind the oak tree in 1703.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of that oak tree still being there today?
Probably not.
No. So, respect. Watch what you do. And as far as the burial and what people think, I always tell people, if you can make a donation significant enough, I don't have to run these ghost hunts. And respect the people in there. Definitely. And most of the time, the spirits will respect what you're doing, especially if you can show what you're doing.
I like it.
I agree.
I mean, we've reclaimed about 60% of this cemetery. There's still more to go.
Well, that kind of goes on to my next question is, what is your goal for Hilldale?
To actually fully reclaim it and allow more public events in there. Well, obviously when it's safe to do so.
Yes.
And come up with some new ideas, because I've actually alluded to this twice because I got sidetracked. So in the 1600s, you died, you were buried, and you were forgotten for the most part.
Yep.
Dawn the religious revolution of the late 1800s. That's when you got the burials like today. Someone died, you paid your respects, you keep going back to the cemetery. Hilldale Cemetery is a garden-style cemetery, which means people used to picnic in these. They'd bring their families down with their picnic lunch.
Wow.
They show movies in them today. There's a big one down in, and I always forget the name of it, then when I get off the air I'll remember it. They show Friday night horror movies, which are not for me.
Yes, no, they're not for you, so I'm sure you don't go watch horror movies in the cemetery.
No. People have asked us to do it. We might once we get through this one area cleared out where there's no gravestones.
It would be a really cool like, you've got a really awesome spot to be able to do it, Tom. Like, I would jump on board with that. I support
that. You know, as long as you keep the respect of the families and the respect of the spirits, I'll respect the person that says I don't agree with you.
Right.
Yeah.
But at the same token, I got to get that cemetery financially situated so the next generation that takes over don't have to deal with what I had to deal with.
Correct. Well, and I think what's really good, especially about the way that you go about handling, this cemetery, Tom, is it really kind of shows that you can have it both ways. For the people that maybe don't buy into the paranormal side and the investigation side, if you can show that it can be done in such a way where you are giving just the utmost respect and you're bringing attention, you're keeping these past loved ones in the public eye, so that things aren't being forgotten and these places aren't being forgotten about. I think that if more people and more owners and more cemeteries were able to kind of handle it that same way, it would just kind of, I think you would see a shift. And you would see that it's a good thing. It's a good thing what you do there, and even for someone who might not, again, fully believe in the paranormal side of it, they can at least see that you're being respectful, you're bringing attention, and you're keeping these loved ones, in the foreground. Yeah, you're just not using it strictly for paranormal purposes.
Right. Like that, you guys do things for the veterans. You have the Veterans Hill there. You do above and beyond work. Like,
we're actually the only cemetery in Havel that gets involved with Reach Across America.
Really?
Wow.
And last year, Essex County Ghost Project members helped out at Hilldale. Then we went to the old Bradford burial ground, laid extra wreaths that we had left, that we had the veterans wreaths there.
Mm-hmm.
And flags. We also did it with flags on Memorial Day.
That's awesome.
Essex County Ghost Project helped out with Hilldale, and then we went over to 1, 2, 3 other cemeteries to double check to make sure all their veterans had flags.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
So there is respect out there.
Yeah, and it goes beyond just the necessarily like paranormal thing too. Like,
and I will tell you this: when I stop at cemeteries, if I have extra flags in my car, and I see a veteran that don't have a flag, I walk back to my trunk, pop the trunk, and we give them a flag.
Awesome.
If I have any, in the trunk.
Yeah.
No questions asked.
Yeah.
So there is respect. I do respect the dead.
Yeah.
And what I do by trying to respect the dead, we need to raise money for the cemetery. Yep. When I took over that cemetery, all the money was gone for the most part.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I took it over with $800. Now I want you people listening at home. Do you think you could run a house on $800?
No.
No, not so much. Not so much.
No. What?
I said no, not so much.
No, you can't even run anything on $800.
No.
So we've raised the money. We've had to spend a lot of money to fix major issues in there. We've raised it, fixed it. We still have a balance today.
Awesome.
Much higher than 800. Not greatly, but we're, I would say around 13,000, 14,000 now.
Awesome.
But,
Awesome.
and as I said earlier, I've raised so much money for other nonprofits. That's where that big number came from.
Right.
Yeah.
But we've also spent a lot of the money we've had to raise to fix issues.
Yeah.
We've spent thousands of dollars to repair issues in there.
Yeah.
No, and it's really interesting because, again, it's a side of this that a lot of people wouldn't think of. You drive by and you take for granted these beautiful places, these beautiful locations. That's really what they are at the end of the day. These are beautiful locations, these cemeteries, and you don't necessarily think about the work that goes in behind, and you just assume that it's some company that comes in and landscapes everything and keeps it all looking fine, but it's people like you and your volunteers that are putting in the footwork.
Right, and every so often we do get volunteers in. I mean, we get a lot of help at Hilldale from Acasio's True Martial Arts and other service organizations, but it's maintaining it.
Yeah.
These service organizations, Acasio's, they're all springtime and fall time with their black belt students.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But when we get service organizations, they may give us 1 or 2 days, which is grateful. But once they get that area cleaned up, now we got to maintain it
Yeah.
with lawnmowers that are not even supposed to be used at cemeteries. Now, they are legal, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they're lawnmowers you're going to use on your front lawn. So cutting through 20.34, 21 acres of land,
Yeah.
all hills, cutting through grass, sometimes it's knee high. How long do you think those lawnmowers are going to last for?
You'll be out there.
Very long.
You'll be out there with your sickle before long.
We have a company in Haverhill that just told us 2 of the lawnmowers we do have.
Yeah.
I don't want to see them back
Oh.
because I'm not going to charge you
They're
to fix
tired
them.
of
They're
working
going
on
in
them.
the dumpster.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
funny.
You've bled those ones dry. Yeah.
Enough. Put them.
Yeah,
Put 'em in
this
the
is guy-
graveyard.
I know. Bury them.
Yeah.
Bury them.
Yeah. This is the company that said that to, not me, but said it to my volunteer coordinator and vice president, Tammy. I chuckled over it because he doesn't want to take money from us that he knows we don't have. It's not worth fixing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the end of last year, we started raising money for a couple new lawnmowers. We got one. I'd like to raise a little bit with stuff coming up recently
Yeah.
and raise some more awareness so we could get the type of mower we need for that cemetery.
Yeah.
At least one. We probably need 4, but I'll start with 1 and keep the old clunkers going
As long as they can, right?
Yep.
as long as they can. But I'd like to start with 1. And don't think I need to go out and buy, and I'm not looking to, a landscaping mower, because if you go up the side of the hill with one of those,
Yeah.
you're going down backwards,
Oh,
flipping
yeah.
over.
Yeah.
Especially
no, it
there.
wouldn't be pretty. It would not
There's
be pretty.
only 2 locations in that cemetery we could use a big landscaping mower, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The tops of 2 of the 3 hills, the roads, there's a whole bunch of them,
Yeah.
and then one flat ground between Soldiers Hill and Red Maple Hill.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so what I'm looking for is what's it go up and down hills where no one's going to get hurt on.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Safety first.
So, Tom, one thing we want to do is we kind of like ending on a little bit of a. Oh, sorry.
Oh, I have actually just a quick question because I just thought that it would be kind of fun to kind of tie this into. But it's my favorite story to hear of yours from Hilldale. So, do you mind sharing the story about the time that you slept at Hilldale?
Oh, which
The first
time?
The first time. I know you've slept there multiple times.
Many of times. Well, what happened was I just taken over the cemetery and dirt bikes hang out in that place.
Yep.
So I fell asleep watching it in my usual location. Knock on the window story, I get a knock on the window. I think it's my cousin or a Havel cop making sure I'm alive. It's 2 shadow figures.
Wow.
I know. Every time I hear this story, it's my favorite story to hear from Tom about Hilldale Cemetery.
Not the head coming out of the ground. You don't like that one?
That's a good one too. The head coming out. I think you have another one with the hand coming out.
Yeah, the picture.
Yeah.
You have a photo of it, like
the head coming out of the ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Up on Soldiers Hill.
Yeah. No.
So that was, in another interesting story. When I first took that cemetery, I had to be there every night. And I chased this kid out with his dirt bike. He got a little upset with me. So he came back with his friends. And I got out near my car, and I didn't have anything, a billy club. Usually I carry a billy club on me because you don't know what you're going to deal with when you're throwing people out late at night.
Yeah.
And I was running back to the car to get that because they were chasing me. And something sprung a branch. Something. Not me. Sprung a branch, and it's flung back, hit the kid off the dirt bike, and damaged his dirt bike pretty badly.
Oh my God, I'd never heard that story.
Yeah. And Daddy, the kid's father, thought Hilldale should pay for the dirt bike, even though dirt bike's not allowed over there.
Yeah, no, sorry, buddy.
Yeah, you lost your dirt bike.
Yeah. Well, it was Hillsdale taking care of itself.
Right. So what I think it was one of the spirits that wanted to take care of the, protect me, take care of myself, and they liked the work that's being done down there and didn't want a bunch of yahoos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Undoing what you guys are working so hard to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dirt bikes and all-terrain vehicles don't belong in cemetery dirt roads because what it does, it loosens up the road and causes an erosion problem.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Bicycles are okay. You want to take but don't, pop the wheelies and, offer stones or burn out your tires because as soon as you loosen that dirt, you get one decent rainstorm. Now you got an issue brewing.
Yeah.
That costs money to fix it. We don't have when we're trying to fix other things.
Yeah, no, that's not cool. So for Tom, for our last question, it's kind of just like a little fun one. So if you could investigate with anybody, who would be that one person that you would pick?
Past, present,
besides you guys?
Oh, I know. Oh, you just killing me, Tom. I know. We love investigating with you.
That's a good question because I've investigated with a lot of people that I, have a lot of respect for.
Mm-hmm.
Names in this field, big names. But I'm going to go back. I'm going to go back before, I'm going to go back a little bit. Probably if I had one person I could choose, it would be a reincarnation.
Oh.
I would have loved to investigate it because I have this thing about demons and I help people with their demons. We could discuss that another day.
Yeah, definitely.
Or on any other show I've talked about it. But probably the one I've investigated with Paulino, the Johnson brothers. I've investigated with a whole bunch of different people.
Mm-hmm.
But the one that I never got to investigate with because he went way too young, that I probably would love to go back in time, was Ed Warren.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
That would be a good one for sure.
Because I've investigated with some of the best investigators. I have been blessed to work with these people.
Yeah, you've investigated with people that trained and work alongside the Warrens.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely. And plus, they're New England based. No, I love it.
Yeah, so that would probably be it because I have a lot of friends in this field, a lot of friends and acquaintances I've built up through the years.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
That's awesome. So, Tom, do you mind letting people know where they can find you, where they can find out more about Hilldale?
Where they can donate if they'd like to.
If they felt comfortable enough donating and everything like that to Hilldale?
All right. So the best way to get a hold of me is not by email. My computer skills are superb. The best
You're
way
better
to get
off just
a hold
going
of me,
down and trying to find you with a handshake. Yeah.
The best way is either message me on Facebook because I'm always on it,
Yeah.
or I'll give out my top secret private cell phone number.
Oh, boy.
That's the best way to get a hold of me.
It is.
And that's 978-376-2807. And please call me I'm not a big fan of texting either, or IMing.
Nope.
I'm old school.
Nope.
I'm 88 years old and still going strong.
Oh, jeez.
You look good for 88.
Awesome.
Well, that's awesome, Tom. So, Tom from Essex County Ghost Project. I also know that they're on Facebook, too, so you can find them there as well.
Yep.
But, well, thank you, Tom, so much for...
Thank you, guys.
Yes, no, we enjoyed having you on, and we love having our chats with you, so...
Definitely. Thank you, Tom. We appreciate
All
it
right,
as always.
thank you, and have a good evening, guys.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And to everyone else who hung out tonight and listened to us, as always, we appreciate you guys joining us, and we will be back next month with another episode of Parapeeps New England.
Yep, and you can find us at Paranormal 5 on Facebook, paranormal5.com, and also at Paranormal 5 on Instagram. And please feel free to message us if you guys are interested in stickers, because we would love to send them to you. They're free of cost. All you need to do is just head on over to one of those places and send us a message, and we'll get them out to you.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Take care, and we'll talk soon.
Yes, thank you, guys.